I love moving across the land, kind of easing Betsy down. Spreading seed at amazing speed, about 2 feet off the ground. But it's really not how high I go that makes me feel the best. It's taking what I like in life and putting it to the test. Me and my RC, me and my RC. 'Cause what's good enough for other folks, it ain't good enough for me and my RC, me and my RC.
Not all fabric softeners are alike. Introducing Stay Puft Blue. It's different. Watch and I'll show you why. Stay Puft Blue has a unique formula that softens as well as you could ever want. But compared to the leading brand, Stay Puft Blue helps towels keep more of their natural absorbency. See? With Stay Puft Blue, towels absorb more like they should. And your entire wash is soft and fresh smelling. Stay Puft Blue. Now there's a difference.
A sprinkle a day helps keep the odor away.
A sprinkle a day helps keep odor away.
The baking soda does it. Shower-to-shower deodorant body powder is made with baking soda to help neutralize odor. Ordinary body powders don't have it.
A sprinkle a day helps keep the odor away.
Shower-to-shower deodorant body powder with baking soda.
Have you had your sprinkle today?
The embassy is buzzing in anticipation of major fuel economy news from Ford.
We have dominated the world in fuel economy.
Domination over.
The new Mustang 2 MPGs are here.
Ford acts on mileage by introducing Mustang 2 MPG, an American car rated at 28 miles per gallon highway with a lower sticker price than any foreign car in its class.
Ich habe das nicht gewusst.
The new Mustang 2 MPGs at your local Ford dealer.
Next Sunday, first time on TV, can a girl from a little sausage factory in Italy find romance and happiness in the land of the free?
Ma no, it's mortadella.
You're not allowed to bring meat of any kind into the country.
Top it.
All right, miss. This has gone far enough.
I want a lawyer.
Magdalena.
Magdalena, 2 D's, not good.
Sophia Loren in Lady Liberty, next Sunday, 8:30, 7:30 Central Time.
Sometimes I speak better without words.
Now, Dodge prices start as low as $29.45. $29.45. That's the suggested price for this Dodge Colt, the little import that saves gas mile after mile. And for a limited time only at participating Dodge dealers, you can save on all Dodge Darts, pickups, and Dodge Fans in stock. First, make your best deal, and then get an additional $200 rebate. For low prices and a $200 rebate, see your local Dodge dealer.
Guess how long this tire will last? It's Uniroyal's Tough Guy with CRF that strengthens the rubber for good mileage.
We figure after a year of average driving, you'll wear the Tough Guy down this far.
And after 2 years, this far. And 36 state laws say the Tough Guy won't be worn out till way down here.
The Tough Guy double steel belted radial, only from Uniroyal.
The human desire to watch a variety of violent situations being acted out as a form of entertainment goes back practically to the beginning of civilization. But because of the tremendous popularity of violent movies and television shows in the 70s, we've been reading and hearing quite a bit about the excesses of screen violence lately. Now, some experts consider it to be a valuable vicarious release that actually prevents a lot of real-life violence. But others say that all the bloodshed and brutality we see in films is desensitizing, causing us to be more tolerant of real-life violence and in some cases more prone to commit violence. Now, obviously, that's a debate that won't be resolved until more information has been assembled. In the meantime, though, it's interesting to see how the He-Man macho movie stars who have become rich and famous by acting out violence feel about the effects of their movies. So right now we're going to talk with some of the most prominent of these macho movie stars. like John Wayne, who's practically become a legend as the man who shoots first and talks later, whether he's a cowboy hero or more recently a two-fisted modern-day cop. And Clint Eastwood, who also got his start in the same shoot-'em-up Western tradition, and then became a box office superstar with celebrations of an unscrupulously brutal cop called Dirty Harry. Eastwood shares the distinction of being one of the world's 2 highest-paid movie stars with Charles Bronson, who we will also confront and tangle with about the vengeance-oriented movies he represents, especially Death Wish. Kirk Douglas has reels and reels of rough stuff to his credit, giving him a very personal view of just how much violence is acceptable and how he deals with it in his latest film, Posse. Of course, you should be advised and forewarned that it's impossible to examine the question of violence and violent movie star heroes without showing some brief scenes of what the discussion is about. And the discussion is about the fact that the experts still aren't quite sure yet whether such violence is therapeutic and therefore harmless, or desensitizing and therefore dangerous. And as long as that uncertainty remains, it seems to me that screen violence is a little like playing with dynamite. But I wonder if the men who make violent films have any sense of that, which is what we're going to find out after this.
What are passengers laughing about on this Continental DC-10? We'll show you. See animated cartoons and old-time movie serials at no extra charge. And the pub is back for fun and games with electronic pub pong. Fly Continental's DC-10s and we'll show you how to laugh again, just in case you've forgotten how.
On Continental Airlines, we'll show you. We really move our tail for you.
Busch Gardens presents Showtime America. America. It's a star-spangled razzle-dazzle good time. Now playing at Busch Gardens, 10 a.m. till midnight.
You know, in a way, the old Western saloon is more or less the birthplace of one of the most popular forms of movie violence. And if that's true, then John Wayne is certainly one of the fathers. More than any other movie star, John Wayne represents the classic form of screen killing and bloodshed, the six-shooter, tall in the saddle variety. Wayne has been playing legendary cowboy heroes since 1929, and in the 1970s, he's still with us as Sheriff Rooster Cogburn, the one-eyed lawman who first appeared in True Grit.
All we want to do is get him in that dugout. I'll shoot the last man through the door, and we'll have him over a barrel.
You shoot him without a call?
Well, that'll give him to know our intentions is serious.
Over the years, John Wayne has become a symbol of the death-dealing macho hero, but his own image of himself isn't quite that specific.
Well, I see myself as some type of paint that certain directors can use to good advantage, and if they put me or anybody else in a good personal story, they can usually get something interesting. And my main objective was always to get a good personal story, to play a part of a fellow that you maybe didn't know exactly what he was going to do next. I don't care for those cautious fellas, but more than anything else, that he was never mean or petty. He could be tough or rough or cruel or lack nuance, which after all is what folklore is all about, and it's best understood all over the world. So those are the kind of things, lusty things.
Did you ever get fed up with being typecast in like an endless series of westerns and war pictures?
When I was very young, I was frustrated, and I thought, geez, you know, I want to play the heavy, I want to play this, I want to play everything. And I had good friends like Ford and Hathaway and Hawks and Harry Carey and his wife, Ollie Carey. Well, these are much older people than I. But I was with a young group talking, and I remember Ollie was sitting there looking at me, my young career, and I was saying what I wanted to do, and she said, you big stupid jerk. And I said, what's that? She said, Harry Carrie was standing there, and he always stands like this, kind of a Western thing. And she said, would you want to see Harry different? I said, no, of course not. And she said, well, people have decided they like you a certain way, so be kind to them and play that character. And it was good advice, and gradually I came to realize that there were certain things that people like me in, and I better kind of stick to them.
Wayne did stick to the things people seemed to like him for, even when he made his recent transition from Westerns into the more contemporary cops and crime kind of pictures. In McHugh and in Brannigan, Wayne plays a maverick cop who is not only violent, but he seems quite willing to take the law into his own hands and fists.
I didn't feel that I was taking the law onto myself.
But in the process, he did some things that were outside the bounds of what a policeman should do, even though at the time he was...
Well, it's what they say today that a policeman shouldn't do, but I mean, the way people treat policemen, I think they should be given a little more leeway than they're given. I think that you find in this country that people have to take things into their hands once in a while to make other people conscious of what's going on.
Clint Eastwood might not agree with that attitude, but Eastwood certainly has become world famous and phenomenally wealthy by playing a whole series of tough-talking macho characters who definitely take a violent He-Man approach to life.
Well, I guess maybe I like that kind of character. I think it's a good escape nowadays in a day when there isn't too much of that, and society doesn't allow you to have much of that. I think that's very appealing to an audience, and I suppose it must be very appealing to me personally, or else I wouldn't portray it so much.
The soft-spoken Eastwood first established his tough guy image in a series of westerns, but he really gained prominence in his Dirty Harry movies as a mean and vicious cop who not only took the law into his own hands, but pushed the idea of police brutality to new extremes as well.
Where is she? You tried to kill me! If I tried that, your head would be splattered all over this field. Now, where's the girl?
He was dealing with a maniacal killer, and he had to solve the case by the killer's own words. He had to solve the case in 6 hours. So he tortured the killer and did a lot of unethical things. I think Dirty Harry is a very romantic film where the people with a natural fear of violent crime would think that there's a man who'd expend himself to that degree in their behalf if they were in that situation. I think everybody would like to believe that there's a Dirty Harry on every street corner in case they were molested in some fashion.
To protect them. Don't you ever worry, though, about glorifying and glamorizing violence in your films?
No, I don't think we glorify it. I think we show it as though we certainly have never balleted it and tried to make it look appetizing. Or they're tough films, so we've tried to, I don't think we've glorified it, no. I've never really sat and analyzed it. I don't moralize on it. I don't think that, I don't like violence in real life. I mean, I'm not an advocator of violence, but I feel that stories with violent conflict being the basis of drama, stories with violent conflict seem to be the ones that are the most provocative for people. I don't like to make movies that are going to play to empty houses, hopefully. I don't want to waste a year of my life preparing something that nobody's going to be interested in seeing.
But have you ever felt, though, that you've become rich and famous by exploiting a side of human nature that really isn't all that good or healthy or humane?
Well, I think everything's exploitative in the sense that you're trying to take people on this trip, like I was mentioning. I think that you want to tell a subject that's provocative. I don't know. I don't know. I've discussed it with psychiatrists, and some of them feel that it has no bearing at all on people. If people are healthy mentally, it has no effect at all. They say if a person has tendencies towards schizophrenia, then it might be unhealthy for them. The only trouble is you have to weigh, as a maker of films, the same thing anybody else and any other entertainment media would have to think about is, are you going to make it for the vast majority who are healthy mentally, or do you make it for one sick person? And you, sometimes it's, I wouldn't want to make a film that encouraged people to go out and do some overt act. But at the same time, I want to make films that people can escape with, and can go, a guy comes home from a hard day's work, takes his girl, they go to a flick. They should go on a trip somewhere. I should take them on a trip somewhere that is different than their normal life.
But why do you always end up taking them on a violent trip?
I guess it's just the type of things I play. Maybe I do them better than I do something a little calmer.
You think that's true?
I don't know. Possibly.
Eastwood has changed his image slightly in his latest film, The Eiger Sanction, in which he tries his hand at mountain climbing. Eiger Sanction is a lot less violent than previous Eastwood epics, but there are a couple of murders, and Eastwood himself is a killer. At least in his earlier action pictures, Eastwood played a violent cop, but in Eiger Sanction, he plays a hired assassin.
Well, the Eiger Sanction, he's a hired assassin. He's a PhD. He's a collector of rare art. He's a mountain climber, and he's a killer. And it's an ultimate male fantasy kind of role.
Oh, really?
It's, you know, what everybody would like to somebody would like to identify with one or more of those facets of the personality.
Who would want to identify with the fantasy of being a killer, though?
Well, there's a vengeance motivation that goes along. There's various motivations that go besides being a killer. He's a killer who's trying to get out of it.
You mean you really think that it's a male fantasy to want to be a killer?
Well, I think they'd be able to handle all those kind of situations. Might be. If you were a killer in the so-called, you know, on the side of the champion of righteousness or whatever.
What about your responsibility as a filmmaker, though? You ever feel like you'd like to make a film that appeals to other kinds of fantasies rather than killing and action and adventure, some fantasy to help humanity, to solve social problems, to eliminate poverty, you know, things like that, ignorance, education?
I think that, yeah, I'd like to make a film if there was a really intelligent story written by that, about a subject like that. The only thing is that is not in the escape vein. I think that's something we're reading about and we're constantly faced with, and a problem that we're going to have to solve in our daily life. I don't think that's what people want to pay to $50 or whatever a theater ticket costs to be entertained by. I think you'd be playing to empty theaters because they're bombarded every night on TV and in their newspapers about these specific problems you mentioned. I think they're very noble. I think they would make a very noble subject to do. You could do the life story of Albert Schweitzer. I might be wrong for that role.
Let's talk about your money and about ways to save it. Bank of America gives you a choice of 10 different savings plans. We pay the highest interest allowed by law, from 5% on regular passbooks to 7.5% on investment certificates. We give you the safety of California's largest bank and the convenience of more than 1,000 offices, twice as many as any other bank. For the most complete combination of savings benefits you can get, save at Bank of America. More Californians do.
Hi, Mermaid. What's new?
Something special. We're first to request and receive this U.S. Department of Commerce seal.
So constant federal inspection assures that chicken of the sea is safe, clean, and wholesome. Well, congratulations.
Skinny mermaid, you happen to see what's the best tuna?
I'm so
Chicken
proud
of the sea.
The freshest Italian dressing? You can't buy it in a bottle. You have to make it fresh. So I use Good Season's Italian salad dressing mix. This packet keeps the herbs and spices fresh. Add your own fresh oil and vinegar right up to the measuring lines for dressing as fresh as your salad with real Italian flavor. Fresher than any bottle dressing. Good Seasons. You can't buy it in a bottle. You have to make it fresh.
Excuse me? Is this the right road to Hamlin?
Yes. Hey, look at that car.
Look how winding it is. Let's follow it.
Introducing the AMC Pacer, the first wide small car. It's wider than any other small car, so you not only get lots of room, you also get an incredibly stable ride. In case you're wondering where to get the Pacer, here they come. Drop in at P. Piper's or any other AMC dealer. Instead of following one, you can drive one.
Kirk Douglas first became a star in 1949 with a somewhat violent film about boxing called The Champion. Since then, he's appeared in dozens of pictures, many of them even rougher than The Champion. Spartacus and the Vikings, for example, were hallmarks in his career. And he even has a few tough moments in his two new films, Once Is Not Enough and an old-style Western shoot-'em-up, which he directed, called Posse. So Douglas is one macho movie star who brings an extensive background of experience to any discussion about screen violence.
Well, David, there's no doubt we live in violent times. I think there's less violence in movies than there is in life. I'm appalled by the violence I see on television depicting what's happening in real life. I mean, during this terrible war that was going on in Vietnam, there was more violence shown on TV depicting that war than there was in any movie I've been in. So violence is a word that's hard for people to agree on it. If someone goes to an action picture, you see, to me, the words are sort of, it's semantics again. You sometimes use violence when I use action. So I don't quite know where excess violence begins and where action begins.
Do you ever worry, though, about the hero models that you're portraying in some of your films, the kinds of ideas that you're putting forth about solving problems with violent solutions?
Having 4 sons, I'm tremendously concerned by the impression that a movie gives. But in most of my movies, I'm more the anti-hero. In the last movie that I did, Posse, I play a marshal who has certain violence in him, but I like to think that it's not carried to a point where people would say, well, the thing to do is to, emulate that violence in life. In Posse, for example, there's a scene where I wipe out Bruce Dern's gang in a shootout in the shacks. Now, they're done, it's done quickly, there's about 8 of them. It's done also with a certain amount of humor.
Yes.
That's used in it. And also, you see, in a Western, a certain amount of violence becomes more permissible because it's separated from time. Now, if you take that shootout in Posse, and if it was done like a modern-day SLA shootout, it makes the violence much closer to the human being, to the person watching. Whereas in Posse, that scene happening in 1892 removes it. And if you notice in there, as a director, there was none of the killings that I tried to dwell on. If anything, I tried in a peculiar way to bring in a little black humor. So it was done because, they all were destroyed because they were a stupid group, not out of, so it tended to minimize the violence. Because I think about, having done quite a few action pictures, I think about the degree of violence that you could or should portray on a screen.
How does it strike you, though, that violence is such a popular form of entertainment, that people go to movies to be entertained by watching killing and bloodshed and brutality and beating and so forth?
Yeah, but David, that depends on the individual. A movie is always made primarily to entertain. Mm-hmm. You see, there are different ways of entertainment. You can entertain people by frightening them, by making them laugh, by making them cry, but primarily you entertain them by making them forget their everyday life. Now, the appetites of people change. You may not like going to a bullfight or a cockfight. Someone else does. That's a form of violence. Somebody might say, oh, I don't want to see that picture. Well, there's too much action in it. Well, other people do. You see, so you don't know. I mean, the thing is, there are different types of movies, but the appetites of people vary.
Charles Bronson represents one of those different types of movies, a type that might best be described as physically brutal. Like Eastwood, Bronson is also rather mild-mannered in person, a concerned father of 6 and devoted husband to actress Jill Ireland, who co-stars in many of his pictures. But Bronson's mild manner becomes more assertive when you accuse him of being a prime promulgator of the macho myth and an actor whose pictures are designed to bring out the beast in us.
To tell you the truth, Mr. Sheehan, I don't think about it that way. I read a script, and it's a piece of entertainment to me. It's something that I feel the people are going to see or not see. Now, I know that some people won't see these pictures, but I make pictures, I feel, for the world population, not for a little clique of people, and especially not for critics. You can understand. You a picture because I think they do, from their own mental approach. They do. I mean, it's a profession like any other. But you can't if you make pictures for critics. How do I make a picture, for instance, or choose one to make for you, as opposed to a critic in Bangkok? You know, it's an entirely different thing. So you got to make it for a world population and for the success of that piece of material, whether it's going to make money so that you can continue making pictures from the money you earn from that picture. That's what it's all about in the first place.
Which may sound a bit mercenary, but the profit motive is obviously what seems to be behind the current proliferation of movie violence. Bronson's recent bloodbath, entitled Death Wish, for example, is one of the highest-grossing films of the past couple of years. It glorified the vigilante actions of a New York architect who went on a murderous rampage to avenge the brutalizing of his wife and daughter by muggers. Death Wish was a contemptible kind of picture, I thought, specifically designed to appeal to a lynch mob mentality.
I don't even know that there is a lynch mob mentality. And I think an audience might pick up from one another a feeling, like a mob might sometimes do.
But it all seems to be such a contrived situation, designed intentionally to stir the audience up, make them cheer and stomp, as they do.
It's not contrived. Suppose it happened to your family, and your life was being observed from then on. Would you say, Jesus, they contrived that thing so you could show what this man feels? It's not. It's what the man feels because it happened.
Not only his feeling, but his action. They cheer and stomp at his actions.
Yeah,
when he goes out in the street and shoots people.
That's an audience.
Is that everywhere, or is it just New York?
That's everywhere.
I don't know. I think that's everywhere.
They did it
from what I hear, but I haven't
Well,
seen
I
the
guess
picture
there's a
everywhere.
great feeling of anger and hostility in America right now.
No, it's...
And a great feeling for retaliation. They're angry at something, and I really believe they want to see somebody do something like that.
But it's that celebration of...
cathartic.
Yes,
they need
that's
it.
right. That's the word.
They need that release.
But don't you ever have any pangs of conscience about the fact that a picture like Death Wish really does celebrate vengeance and murder?
I'm only an instrument.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm involved in a picture as an actor, and an actor is only an instrument, you see.
But still, you have responsibility for how you allow yourself to be used as an instrument, right?
No, I can allow myself to be used only in so far as an actor is
Listen,
concerned.
you
I can either be a good actor on a screen and make it believable, or be a bad actor and fight it and not make it so believable. That's all I can do.
Do you ever have any feelings about the fact that you allow yourself to be used as an actor so many times where the hero model that you play always resorts to violent solutions to whatever problems he encounters?
But that is what the world is all about. This is what wars are about. It's violent. The strongest wins. This is what law enforcement is about. A policeman goes through a hell of a lot of training to get the upper hand on the criminal, to enforce the law. And he's violent in order to get the upper hand.
It's unfortunate.
You have strike breakers that are usually work for the law. You have national troops. You have many enforcers, you see, and they're all violent people. They're trained to be violent or how to handle violence. And the only way to handle violence is to be more violent, usually. And so a hero can be a violent hero. Why is it harmful? I mean, where do you draw the line?
But some people would say that that's an irrational approach. And
it's an irrational approach, true. What you're talking about is an idealistic society. It doesn't exist. We don't live in that kind of a world.
But that's the thing
we
about
live
movies,
in a violent world.
But movies could be idealistic.
No,
because they're fantasy anyway.
If they were, then they wouldn't make any money at all.
Yesterday, when you looked for low price and gas mileage, you had to look overseas.
Today, there's the Chevrolet Monza Town Coupe, the sleek, sporty California car that's factory sticker priced lower than the Datsun 610 or the VW Dasher. And EPA highway tests prove it gives better mileage than the higher-priced Datsun 610. The new Monza Town Coupe. It runs circles around those small foreign cars. It's ready at your Southern California Chevrolet dealers.
Thrilled to the world-famous Great American Diving Team. Roar with laughter at our new Seaside Comedy Bowl. It's a whole new happy world summer fun fest at Marineland. You'll love our new pearl divers, and there's a great new look to our sea shows. Marineland's Summer Fun Fest, all yours at one low price. Minutes away on the beautiful Palos Verdes Peninsula. So come on out to Marineland.
Leave the diving to us.
In this part of the country, the temperature can hit 120 degrees. Perfect weather for boiling over. But some people can't let their cars overheat. That's where Dowguard Coolant Antifreeze comes in. Dowguard, the lifeblood of your car. You can keep your car from boiling over if you have the right solution of Dowguard coolant in your radiator. Dowguard, it can keep a car from boiling when it's boiling, even in these parts. Dowguard, a car's lifeblood.
But I came over for one thing and one thing only. That's to get Chong-Ye, and that's what I'm going to do.
He's a patsy, a decoy, a setup. What do you do when you're an honest New York cop and everything's against you?
Need some help. I'm a doctor.
See Gene Hackman explode as Popeye Doyle in the all-new French Connection 2, rated R.
This supercharged action adventure now playing at theaters and drive-ins everywhere.
Well, we may not live in an ideal world, but certainly one of the functions of the craftsmen and artists who give us fantasy experiences like movies is to now and then offer us some kind of idealistic inspiration, which in itself is an ideal, I guess, because obviously too many of today's movie makers are much more devoted to money and materialism than they are to idealism. But maybe tomorrow's movie makers will dream of humane ideals that could exist instead of inhumane degradations that do exist.
Super Coney Hollywood. They come from Chillicothe and Paducahs with their bazookas to get their names up in lights.